What exactly is your plan?
Before Tom Cruise flew fighter jets or clung to skyscrapers, he stepped into a samurai's world, and the result was one of his most layered, unexpected performances. In The Last Samurai, Cruise trades his usual swagger for a weathered soul, portraying Nathan Algren, a haunted Civil War veteran thrust into Japan's most transformative era. It's a role that pushes him from American military might to spiritual rebirth, from outsider to insider, and it might just be the most underrated pivot in his storied career. Let's unpack how this Hollywood epic redefined both a genre and a global icon.
To do is I'm going to be deploying. If this is twisted while it's burning, I'm going to be spinning and burn. I have to kick out of the twist and then ignite it within 10 seconds.
One of the film's most compelling threads is its meditation on transformation, both personal and national. The Last Samurai captures Japan at a crossroads, abandoning centuries of samurai tradition for the modern machinery of war. But instead of glorifying progress, the film forces us to ask, what's lost when a culture evolves too quickly? It's a question that feels just as urgent today, as AI disrupts everything from art to industry. Just like Japan in the 1800s, we're navigating a future that demands efficiency, but may cost us identity. This tension between old and new echoes through films like Last of the Mohicans, Dances with Wolves, and Unforgiven, where aging warriors and outsiders are caught in the current of change. These stories aren't just about survival, they're about surrender, rebirth, and the uneasy cost of progress. Cruise's Algren doesn't conquer this new world, he's remade by it. The Last Samurai drops Tom Cruise into 1800s Japan, a nation on the brink of radical change. Feudalism is fading, and the emperor is assembling a Western-style army to pull the country into modernity. Cruise's character, Nathan Algren, arrives as a broken man, an alcoholic haunted by past battles, disillusioned with the America he served. Tasked with training a ragtag group of peasants, he finds himself caught between worlds, unwelcome at home, mistrusted abroad. This double exile gives the story its emotional weight. Unlike many East meets West films, The Last Samurai doesn't just exoticize the foreign, it humanizes the collision. With echoes of Last of the Mohicans and shades of Akira Kurosawa, it becomes a meditation on cultural humility. And for Cruise, it was a rare chance to trade Hollywood heroism for historical introspection, a time and place rarely explored on the big screen, especially through a Western lens. Tom Cruise has built a career not on fitting in, but on standing just outside the frame. Whether he's a rebellious pilot in Top Gun, a traumatized veteran in Born on the 4th of July, or a man unraveling in Eyes Wide Shut, his most powerful roles put him at odds with the world around him, even in A Few Good Men or The Firm, where he's technically part of the establishment. The tension lies in him realizing he's been sold a lie. He's not comfortable in the center. He thrives on the edges, where identity is unstable and truth is elusive. In The Last Samurai, that outsider energy becomes literal. Algren is a man without a home, a soldier without a cause, thrust into a world he doesn't understand. But rather than bend it to his will, he lets it reshape him. It's not just another Cruise role, it's the natural evolution of a persona that's always resisted comfort zones. When stacked against Hollywood's long line of war epics, The Last Samurai stands apart, not just for its aesthetics, but for its isolation. Classic East meets West films like Bridge on the River Kwai or Tora 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 showcased Americans operating as teams in foreign conflicts. But Cruise's Algren is alone, immersed, challenged, and ultimately changed by the world around him. This framing gave director Edward Zwick a canvas to explore 1800s Japan not through conquest, but cultural confrontation. The comparisons to his earlier film Glory are clear in both. A white outsider leads a marginalized group toward something greater, learning as much as he teaches. But where Glory was rooted in hard Civil War truths, The Last Samurai takes more artistic license. Algren is a fictional composite character, inspired by real figures like Jules Brunet, a French officer who fought alongside the samurai in the Boshin War. The film's portrayal of samurai resistance, the modernization of Japan's military, and the cultural code of Bushido are all anchored in reality, but filtered through Hollywood's lens. The grandeur is real, but so is the stretch. That tension between fact and flourish is what makes The Last Samurai a compelling, if stylized, reflection reflection on a pivotal moment in world history. At its core, The Last Samurai is about more than cultural exchange. It's about cultural extinction. The samurai aren't just warriors. They're the embodiment of Bushido, a strict moral code of honor, loyalty, and discipline. As Japan accelerates toward modernization, this ancient way of life becomes collateral damage. The film captures that tension with reverence, showing how tradition doesn't vanish. It's often sacrificed. Algren arrives to teach modern warfare, but ends up learning that not all advancement is improvement. The samurai, in their twilight, fight not to win, but to preserve dignity in defeat. It's a haunting reminder that progress often demands the death of something sacred. And that's the tragedy behind the spectacle, watching a culture willingly dissolve itself in pursuit of survival. It's the emotional backbone of the film, and what makes its historical transformation feel deeply personal. Hollywood has long been fascinated by the fall of empires and the fading of old ways. In the 1950s and 60s, audiences were swept up by sword and sandal epics like Spartacus and Cleopatra, where spectacle met political unrest. But those films often centered power, the rise and rule of civilizations. The Last Samurai flips that lens, focusing instead on collapse, the quiet, inevitable fading of an ethos like Bushido, where films like Gone with the Wind and The Magnificent Ambersons explored social decay through romance and family. The Last Samurai cloaks it in armor and battlefield honor. It's part of a cinematic tradition that includes mutiny on the Bounty and Master and Commander, stories that pit personal code against systemic change. And in the war genre, Echoes of Wings, All Quiet on the Western Front, and later Full Metal Jacket reveal how battle doesn't just shape nations, it redefines the people within them. In every era, these films hold a mirror to what we're losing in the name of progress. The Last Samurai simply chooses to reflect that loss through the fall of a sword rather than the swing of a gavel. As the 19th century closed, the samurai faded, not with a bang, but with a bow. The Meiji Restoration ushered in railways, rifles, and reforms, sweeping away centuries of feudal tradition. The katana was replaced by the bayonet. The warrior's oath gave way to bureaucratic order. It was the cost of modernization, and Japan paid it willingly to join the global stage. The Last Samurai captures this inflection point, not to mourn it, but to memorialize it. Because this story isn't just about Japan, it's about every culture, in every age, faced with the choice between preservation and progress. Today, as we race toward a future of artificial intelligence, automation, and algorithmic life, stories like this remind us what can be lost in the rush. Honor, identity, humanity, these aren't relics, they're anchors. And films like The Last Samurai don't just entertain, they preserve the emotional history that textbooks leave behind. They whisper the truth that while the tools may change, the questions never do. In Hollywood, the war epic and the period piece aren't just genres, they're time machines. They shape memory, influence identity, and often define how history is remembered. The Last Samurai stands as a rare 2000s artifact that respects both spectacle and soul, history and humanity. And at its center is Tom Cruise, an actor whose career has been a balancing act between blockbusters and introspection. But today, Cruise isn't just aging, he's aging against the grain. In a world of green screens and CGI stand-ins, he's still clinging to his own version of Bushido. No body doubles, no shortcuts, no surrender. Whether leaping off cliffs or gripping jet fuselages, he insists on doing it for real. Just as the samurai refused to yield to rifles, Cruise refuses to be replaced by pixels. And maybe that's why The Last Samurai resonates more than ever, not just as a story of cultural change, but as a quiet prophecy. In the age of digital filmmaking, Tom Cruise may be cinema's last true warrior. So if you believe cinema is more than entertainment, if it's a legacy, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and join us on the journey through the movies that made us.